Hello my friends, today I review the Invicta Pro Diver 9403. At a glance, Invicta watches are often mistaken for Rolexes. On closer inspection, the differences are more apparent, yet they still have an eerie amount of shared qualities that beg some questions. Does Rolex own Invicta? Are they allowed to copy their designs? What's the difference between the famous Rolex Submariner and the ultra-affordable Invicta Pro Diver 9403? Let's find out. Invicta was originally founded in 1837 and later re-established in 1991 as the Invicta Watch Group. They own Glycine, Technomarine, and S. Koifman. They are not owned by Rolex in any way. The confusion as to ownership likely stems from the fact that Invicta is one of the largest affordable watch companies, and their best-selling watch, the Invicta Pro Diver, has a lot of resemblances to Rolex's most popular watch, the Rolex Submariner. While the designs are very similar, they also bear many crucial differences which explain the 100x price differential. Invicta and Rolex are fundamentally different companies and brands, serving vastly different purposes and markets. On the one hand, Rolex is the quintessential luxury brand. Today, their focus is on providing an exclusive product bolstered by over $50 million in annual marketing, all with the message luxury and exclusivity. On the other hand, Invicta has the opposite strategy. Instead of raising prices as high as possible and limiting the number of buyers, Invicta makes their watches as affordable as possible and as widely available as possible. Fundamentally, the brands serve two different customers. Rolex serves ultra-wealthy oligarchs, technocrats, millionaires, and celebrities, the top 1% of wealth owners, and the occasional infatuated watch hobbyist who saved for 15 years. They go on the wait list while the elite skip the list, of course. Invicta is for the remaining 99% of the population who can't afford to drop $10,000 on a Submariner like it was an extra cup of coffee. It's for people who need a functional and aesthetic time-telling device rather than a status symbol. However, in borrowing from the Rolex designs, some of the status benefits of Rolex are also conferred onto Invicta. Some Invicta watches look just like Rolex watches. In fact, many brands look like Rolex watches. The reason for this is that long ago, Rolex came up with many beautiful original designs, which are considered classics today. Other brands noticed what was selling well, and once the design patent expired, they were free to copy the styles. Today, watches that attempt a 100% copy are known as illegal replicas. Watches that borrow many or most of the design elements while changing a few aspects are known as homages. Sometimes it's a fine line whether a watch is a good homage or a bad copy, and this has to do with a consumer's aesthetic and historical preferences and sensibilities. Both the Submariner and Pro Diver have evolved drastically since they first came out, and even in the last 5-10 years. As such, this will be a high-level comparison of the similarities and differences in the model lines rather than a specific comparison of particular model numbers. The Invicta features a 40 mm stainless steel case, just like the Rolex, and has a thickness of 14 mm, exhibition case back, luminous hands and hour markers, Japanese 24 jewel automatic movement, NH35A caliber. The watch is assembled in Malaysia and has a weight of 155 grams. It has a 20 mm stainless steel band that is adjustable by adding, removing links with fold-over safety clasp. The Pro Diver is equipped with mineral crystal, screw-down crown, unidirectional stainless steel bezel, and is 200-meter water resistant. The designs of both watches originate with Rolex in 1953, which along with Blancpain and Zodiac introduced the first dive watches to the world. The Invicta Pro Diver is a homage of the Rolex Submariner, meaning that, while not quite a replica or copy, it borrows heavily from the design cues of the original. As such, the Invicta 9403 is a Submariner homage and first appeared on the market sometime in 1991 to 1993. Let's start with the dial indices. Both watches use the same style of hour and minute index markers, round circles with a steel perimeter for the minor hour markers, 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 10, and 11, and bar indices for the two of the four major indices, 6 and 9. Both have a downward-facing triangle at 12 o'clock. These styles are quintessential Rolex staples that nearly every dive watch design since 1953 has copied or borrowed from to some degree. The notable differences are that these markers are proportionally smaller on the Invicta, as can be compared to the relative size of the Mercedes-style circular hour hand. However, older Rolex Submariner models did have much smaller indices like the modern Invicta, Both watches have a date window at the 3 o'clock position with a 2.5x Cyclops magnifier glass. The Cyclops over the date window was one of Rolex's many innovations, and its purpose was to make the date window more readable for those with poor eyesight. As such, it's frequently mocked as being for old people. Today, this is more true as Rolexes are no longer affordable to most younger people, and the old folks who can afford them do need the extra magnification due to their failing eyesight. The main purpose of the date window on the Invicta is to imitate the Rolex Submariner rather than to enhance the clarity of the date window, which is smaller, because in the first place, the customer base of the Invicta is much younger and has better eyesight. Both watches have a similar-looking crown and crown guard. Both bear the logo on the crown, with Invicta using the alternate logo, a cross. The crown guards on the Invicta are much smaller and less refined than on the Submariner. Now to the text area. Besides the brand logo and brand name, 3 total lines of text give a pleasant-to-look-at aesthetic without the over-clutter of paragraphs of text on Invicta. The elements to include are the following: water resistance, chronometer COX certification, movement type, automatic or quartz, and maybe one other interesting element or feature of the watch like sapphire or GMT. For Rolex, 4 of the 5 lines of text are just another way of saying Rolex Submariner, and the wall of text has become somewhat characteristic of the watch. On the other hand, Invicta does away with 3 lines. Invicta does improve on the Rolex design, however, in that the dial is much less cluttered with less writing. Further to the bezel and dial triangle, the lume pip on the triangle part of the bezel is quite large as well, and looks like one of the minor hour indices. On the Invicta, the lume pip is also proportional to its hour markers, but looks quite small compared to the Rolex Sub, and also takes up much less space within the triangle. The Rolex has a unique and distinctive handset, most notably the seconds hand. It has a lumed pip at the bottom which allows verification at night that the watch is running. This is the biggest problem with the Invicta by comparison. While attempting to put an original twist on the rest of the copy, they botched the execution. They placed the lume pip much lower, near the tip of the seconds hand. This makes the hand look heavy at that point by comparison to the Sub. Furthermore, it has the added deficit of running the lumed pip over the hour markers, which is somewhat inconvenient in the dark. Second, the counterbalance of the seconds hand is adorned with an Invicta wing set. While unique, it looks cheap and tacky, and hurts more only because they were trying to be cool and innovative. On the one hand, kudos for not being a blatant Submariner copy. Let's talk other differences and similarities. Both cases are 40 mm wide. Both use automatic movements. The Rolex beats at 8 times per second, while the Invicta beats at 6. Note that a similar watch, the Invicta Pro Diver 9937, also beats at 8 times per second, and is virtually similar to the 9403 in every other regard. The Rolex is water-resistant to 300 meters, and the Invicta is water-resistant to 200 meters. Given the expensive price of the Rolex, I would not submerge it in water to test these claims. While many do so without issues, Rolex forums are full of examples of waterlogged watches. I would also avoid submerging the Invicta for the same reason. At the price point, it is dubious whether the water resistance will actually hold up. Hour and minute handset is nearly identical. Invicta has deeply engraved Invicta into the left side of the watch case. Make sure you are aware of this before you buy. Some people don't like it, others don't care. Bracelet is flimsy on the Invicta. The Invicta has a clear see-through case back, where you can view the automatic movement, while the Rolex is a solid piece of steel. The Rolex is QoSC certified with an accuracy of ±2 seconds per day. The Invicta's accuracy is rated at -20 with +40 seconds per day, but is usually around -10 and +20 per day. In conclusion, the Invicta is a pretty good homage of the Rolex Submariner. There are certainly some differences if you put them under a microscope, but the average onlooker won't notice. The Invicta is the same size and shape as the Rolex and has the same Cyclops. The hands and dial layout are the same, and yet Invicta also has a touch of originality that makes it way better than a replica. So if you want a Rolex Submariner for $100, this is your best bet. And best of all, people on the street will constantly mistake it for a real Rolex, if that is what you're aiming for. Let me know in the comment section what other watches should I review. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button.